Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica. I am a naturalist with Newport Landing Whale Watching in Newport Beach, and I'm coming to you virtually today. I'm very excited to be talking to you all about whales and dolphin. I encourage you guys to ask me any questions that you might have throughout the PowerPoint in the comments below. So I'll be looking forward to answering those shortly. So my background is in biology. I am a naturalist and an outdoor educator with the whale watching company in Newport Beach. And I am happy to be bringing you some whales, but virtually in the classroom. So let's get started. Now, I want you to take a good look at this photo because there is something hidden in this picture that is not a whale. So I'm going to give you a few moments to check it out. Look for that. And here he is. It's a little scuba diver swimming with the whales. This is in here to show you how big these animals actually are compared to you and I. This is an adult human, about 6 feet in length, compared to our blue whale up at the top, which is a size bigger than a school bus, actually bigger than 2 school buses. If you were to take 3 school buses and park them end to end, that would be the size of our big blue whale, which we actually can see here in Southern California regularly in the summer. So what we're going to do today is talk about the 2 different types of whales, and they're split up into 2 categories. One half of this picture is just all of our toothed whales. And toothed whales, we'll talk a little bit more in detail, but they have exactly what you would think they have in their mouth, which is teeth. We then have our baleen whales, which are very fun. So if you look at this photo of a gray whale, you'll see here that it has like slatted teeth. It almost looks like an air conditioning filter. That's exactly what it is. It filters the water. And these teeth are almost like hair. They're made up of a very similar structure called alpha keratin, and this will continue to grow. It's just like our hair and fingernails. If it breaks, it keeps growing, and that will just continue to grow their whole life. Now, if I were to open this whale's mouth and make it say ah, you would see on the inside of those hairy teeth, there's lots of little hairs hanging down. And those hairs actually help this whale filter the water. So all the little types of critters that it's trying to eat will get stuck against those hairs, just like in Finding Nemo. Now, what do these big baleen whales eat? Probably the first thing that comes to a lot of people's minds is small little things floating around, maybe plants or algae, but they don't eat that. They are carnivores. They feed exclusively on either small little plankton like krill, or smaller bait fish like sardines, anchovies, herring, mackerel. They'll feed on all of that. And so I have a really cool video to share with you of a video that was taken in Newport Beach of a big baleen whale feeding out in the open ocean. So what you'll see here is this whale opens its mouth really wide, fills its mouth full of water and food, and then proceeds to squirt the water back out through its hairy teeth. And it's filtering that water just for the food. So it doesn't want to drink all the water that it put in its mouth. It just wants to eat the animals that are swimming around inside that water. So these are fin whales. We normally don't see 2 big fin whales feeding together like this because they have to eat a lot of food in order to sustain their body weight. These whales can weigh hundreds of thousands of pounds in these fin whales, over 200,000 pounds easily. And these guys, what they'll do again is they'll roll over on their side, they'll drop their jaw, and that starts to fill up their throat. You can see their throat actually expands like a big accordion. It pleats out, stretches out, and it allows these whales to fill their mouth full of swimming pools worth of water and food. And that allows these whales to get big because they're able to fill their mouth full of lots of water and food. You'll see this whale feeding right next to our small boat. That boat has 6 people on board. And although it does look like you could fill up, this whale could feed on the boat, it would never be able to fit this many people in the boat inside its mouth. It would never be able to swallow it because the throat on this animal is actually only the size of about a grapefruit. So even though it could put the boat in its mouth, it would never be able to swallow anything bigger than really what it eats, like those sardines and the anchovies and the krill, anything that it's feeding on out in the ocean. So it's just a fantastic way that these whales have adapted to feed in the open ocean on lots of food and get really big. So those are our baleen whales. Next, we're going to talk about our toothed whales. And our toothed whales have very different teeth in their mouth than we saw on those big baleen whales. Toothed whales actually have sharp, pointed, conical teeth. And again, these are all our toothed whales, ranging from our big sperm whale all the way down to our tiny vaquita, our killer whale, our narwhal, our beluga, very recognizable whales in this family of toothed whales. So when we think about what do they eat, they actually will also feed on small fish, but many of these toothed whales, like our killer whale, will actually feed on larger things like sea lions and seals and elephant seals and even small dolphin, which is why they call the killer whale a killer whale, because it's a whale killer and it eats other types of marine mammals like whales. Now, another cool thing about toothed whales is that they have a very different way that they feed. So here's our group of dolphin feeding. You see a small bait ball of anchovies in front of them, and they just bite and swallow those fish whole. They do not spend any time chewing up their food. They don't filter feed like our big baleen whales. They just bite and swallow those little fish, and they do that all day long. And some of our toothed whales have multiple stomachs that they're using to help digest all the fish parts like the bones and everything, so that when they encounter a large group of fish, they can kind of gorge, leave those fish in the first stomach, and then when everything settles down, they can start to digest it in the second, third stomach, and so on, depending on the species of toothed whale. Now, another cool thing that whales have is very similar to us, is a nose, because whales are mammals. Just like us, they have to breathe air. And a lot of times I get this question on the boat when we're whale watching, is because we see them out in the ocean. So a lot of ocean critters are not air breathers because they spend 100% of their life in the water. It doesn't make sense why they wouldn't breathe the water like a fish. But if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see this fish actually has gills. The gills help this fish exchange oxygen from the water column, so it doesn't have to come to the surface and breathe any air. However, our big whale here, like our humpback whale, has 2 blowholes at the top of its head. And those blowholes are used to breathe oxygen in and out, just like us, which is very interesting to think about. If you live your entire life in the water, you are always tied to the surface for breath, so that these whales actually do something very interesting when they sleep, is that they actually have to shut off 1/2 of their brain at a time to go to sleep so that they can continue to breathe. They can never really go 100% to sleep like we do, because they have to think about coming to the surface, taking their breath of air, and then submerging and swimming. They can sleep and swim, and they normally will do this half asleep behavior so that they can continue to watch for predators and any danger that might be by. So very interesting way that these whales behave. So this is a cool video we also took of a mama and baby gray whale from a drone. We'll watch this again too, so you can see they are breathing air in and out from those 2 nostrils at the top of their head. Opens, takes a breath in, and they shut the nostril right before they dive so that they can avoid getting any water in their lungs. And when we see them out in the ocean, sometimes people think they're breathing out water because you see that puff of smoke come off the surface of the ocean. But that puff of smoke is them really just kind of pushing away the water on top of their head because their bodies are wet. And it's also a little bit of water vapor from inside their lungs, because they are mammals like us and they do have like water inside their bodies. And so when we're seeing this puff of smoke come off the surface, it's a really easy distinction for us, an easy way for us to find where these whales are out in the ocean. There's a puff of smoke out in the distance. that's what we see. We're going to go head on over to it because it looks different than anything else that's out there, any birds splashing or anything else. And that will help us locate whales because we really don't have any sonar, any GPS, anything like that that will help us find whales. So this little puff that we see when we're out there on the ocean, we call this a spout. On the bigger whales, like our big blue whale that we talked about, that whale can be up to 100 feet. Well, their spout coming off of the surface of the water can reach to be higher than our boat and over 30 feet high. And that is what we're looking for, right? We don't have any way that we're feeding the whales, baiting them closer, any sounds that we make that's getting the whales to come closer to us. We just look for these clues. We also look for birds flying over the surface of the water, diving down, because that means that those birds are feeding on fish. And that might mean that there are whales and dolphins around also feeding. So we use environmental cues like this puff of smoke or their breath, their spout, or the birds to actually spot the whales. And we do this by using our binoculars. Binoculars are a great tool for seeing things farther away on the ocean. And this is how we're locating whales when we're whale watching. Now, I have so much more information I could talk about whales, but I would love to see if you guys have any questions. So I'm going to pop over to our questions log here and see if anything's come up. If you have anything you want to discuss with me about whales, if you were wondering anything that came up during the presentation, I'd be happy to discuss that. If not, I do have quite a few other things I can chat about with you all. So let me check on that. Okay, perfect. So I have someone that asked, how long have whales been on Earth? Great question. Whales have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years old. There's lots of archaeological evidence of whales being around for millions of years. I mean, if we go back into the evolutionary history of whales, you'll see whales they're actually derived from mammals that used to walk on land. So essentially they came out of the water, mammals on land, and then those mammals kind of transitioned back into the water because they were feeding on, they were specialized on feeding on things that live in the water column. They were filling that niche. And through a lot of happy accidents of just kind of like breeding and surviving and reproducing, and those descendants of whales that had better adaptability to living in the water, we see the whales that we see now. I mean, the legs have kind of been absorbed into the body. If you look into their fins, you'll see that their fins actually have finger-like structure in the bone. And so that is why we're seeing them, breathing air at the surface, because they really were derived from animals that used to walk on land and breathe air on land. And so they've been around for millions of years. Very old descendants of whales. I don't know all the scientific names off the top of my head, but Pakicetus is one of the earliest whale descendants that we know of back in their history. So I see that there is a question about the why whales mass strand. So we don't often see that in California, but we have actually had a unusual mortality event with a lot of gray whales passing away last year. And when we think about what mass stranding, when hundreds of whales just happen to beach themselves, you have to think about a couple of things. Normally, when whales are beaching themselves, it's because they're sick and they're trying to separate themselves from other whales around them, trying to isolate. But whales are very social animals, so you'll normally see them following each other. And by accident, then you'll get whales that are not sick beaching themselves by accident because the sick whale's kind of leading them there. Another interesting thing that we have found out about mass strandings is sometimes they're connected to noises underwater, like oil drilling, sonar that's being, sounded off underwater that really affects the animals. The ice sheets in the Arctic are not fully freezing over their feeding grounds. And so they're not being, the algae that feeds the food that those gray whales feed on is not being produced enough. So it starts like food chain. So we're getting algae not growing enough because the ice is not freezing over those feeding grounds. And then because there's not enough algae, then the food, the small food that they feed on, amphipods, they are not producing enough food for the gray whales. And so when the gray whales go up to the Arctic areas to feed and they're trying to gorge themselves before their migration, if they're not able to get enough food before they make a 12,000-mile migration, then they're in trouble on the way back. They don't have enough energy or blubber to survive that migration. So I think that's what they were concluding that unusual mortality event of those gray whales to be from. All right, so I have another question. It says, what was the whale's name when they had legs? So I would look up Pakicetus. Pakicetus, I'm not sure how it's spelled. Try Googling that out and you'll get a picture of what that whale looked like, or that descendant of whales. You'll definitely get a picture of what that looks like. All right, so I do also get a couple of questions when I'm on the water about, what is the best time of year to come whale watching? We actually see whales all year in Southern California. So if you are a Southern California native, definitely get on a boat near you. Here in Newport Beach, we do have, right now we're seeing humpback whales. We had 4 humpback whales right off the coast. I think it was just yesterday. Where we actually know the individuals that we saw, 2 of the individuals, Chalkboard and Blicka. And we've also had Twitch in the area as well. So whales are really amazing. And we've been studying them, scientists have been studying them since the mid-50s, 1950s, really heavily, and trying to identify individual humpback whales, particularly. Because if we're able to identify individuals through photography, then we're able to track what they're doing, if they're male or female, where they're migrating, how many babies have they had. We can really start to learn a lot about their ecology that way. So we're able to actually, if you take a photo of the underside of a whale's tail, normally the humpback whales have the most distinctive patterns on their tail, lots of black and white coloration and spots and splotches and scratches, and you can see that easily from a photo. And you can log that photo away into a website called happywhale.org, which is a fantastic organization that they are tracking humpback whales and a couple other species of whales around the world to help understand more about their biology through citizen science data, which is great. So you going out on a whale watching boat, snapping a photo of the tail, you'll learn who that whale was. So we're able to know which whales are out in our area. They've been feeding on small schooling fish nearby. We've also seen thousands of common dolphin, bottlenose dolphin we've seen recently, Pacific white-sided dolphin, and fin whales and minke whales. So we've had a lot of activity in the area. Fall is a fantastic time of year to come out. Because the weather's usually pretty mild. We've had very flat, calm sea states. We just get out on our boat for about 2.5 hours. We head out in the open ocean. And like I said, we don't really have any way to find the whales other than just by using binoculars. Maybe other boats are on the water. They're giving us information about where whales might be. And then we go check them out. We stay about a 300-foot distance away from the whales at all times so that we can follow them in a safe way that's not disturbing their natural behavior. And a lot of times we get these really amazing interactions where the whales come closer to us, want to inspect our boat, see what's up with our passengers on board. And so we're really fortunate to be able to do this year round without much of a break in between months, because the species are just kind of constantly cycling in because of the seasonality, because of the food availability. And then for the gray whales, they're migrating starting in late fall into spring. So we're really lucky here to have that opportunity. Let's see. I also get lots of questions about like what whales do we see, what times of year, maybe like what time of year is the best time to come. And I really like to head out right now in the fall is really nice because there's not a lot of other people around. It's really just kind of a calm time to come and join. But in the spring, it's really fun because we start to see our California gray whales, which are one of the cutest whales. I think they have barnacles and whale eyes all over their body. They're a slate gray color. They're really beautiful. and they make one of the longest migrations of any mammal in the world. They go from Alaska down the coast of the West Coast, and they head to Mexico. And they go to a couple of different lagoons here in Baja California. And they have their babies there, they breed there, and then they turn around and they head all the way back up the coast. So the cool thing about these whales is that they really don't stop while they're on the move, and there's close to 22,000 individual whales that are going to be making that migration. So from about early December, we'll start to see a trickle of them come through, and then all the way through like March and April, we really get a peak of the gray whales kind of coming through. And so like around Valentine's Day, and I always remember that because gray whales have a really pretty heart-shaped below, so it's perfect to see at that time of year. And so we'll consistently see gray whales like February, March, April, and then May is the very last mama gray whales coming back up with their babies to Alaska. And it's just such an amazing thing to think that these whales are going 8 months without eating, and the moms have already fasted, and then now they're producing milk for their babies all the way up the coast. It's just a fantastic thing to witness. And these gray whales will hug the coast because they're trying to avoid predators. They're trying to navigate. They don't have a GPS that they're using to get through all the West Coast here to try to get back home so they can eat again. And it's just amazing to think that within 50 feet of the beach, you could sometimes go just walk out even and see these whales navigating, cruising up the coast. So I would encourage you, if you've never seen the gray whale migration in California, just walk on over to a bluff or a beach between February and March, and you'll likely see something if you stand there for long enough to take a good look. So that's what I would do. Also, when you come on out on our boats, we'll often get looks at, a couple of them, 5, 10 individual gray whales making this migration, and often babies in the later part of the season. So let's see, and I have someone says, I love my earrings. Thank you guys. These are actually handmade by my sister. She knows I'm a huge whale nerd, and I would, encourage you to check it out. Look up things about whales that you're interested in. There's tons of resources online, and if you've never seen whales in the wild, this is the time. I mean, all of our boats here in Newport Beach are going out at half capacity. Everyone's wearing masks on board. We're doing additional cleaning. It's a really family-friendly and safe activity for you guys to come on out and do. If you guys want to use a promo code too, I do have a promo code. It's INSTA50, INSTA 50. If you use that online, you get 50% off of our whale watching cruises in Newport Beach. That's with Davies Locker and Newport Landing Whale Watching. We'd love to have you come out. We have naturalists on our boats that have artifacts, posters, a wealth of information about the whales and the wildlife you'll see. And especially right now when we're kind of cooped up inside a lot, it's such a great activity to get out, feel the fresh air, enjoy the time with your family, and then see these beautiful wild animals. So really appreciate you guys tuning in today for the presentation. I'm so happy that I was able to spend some time with you all, and hopefully you learned a little bit about whales today.